Hello and welcome to this week's Fotospeed video, as always with me, Tim Jones. Today what we're going to be looking at is black and white conversion and how we process our images within Capture One. But before we dive into Capture One, let me just say April is a black and white month here at Fotospeed, and we are running our FS monthly competition all to do with black and white images. So please use the hashtag FS monthly on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter for a chance to win a £50 voucher and also a print printed by myself. Me and Sam will be announcing the winners probably in a live on the first week of May. So please just keep an eye out for the announcements on that. But really look forward to seeing all your entries. And as always, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Stick around to the end of the video because I will have a voucher code that you can use on Fotospeed papers to get a little bit of a discount on photospeed.com. Okay, so let's get started. Let's dive into Capture One and have a look at black and white conversion and how we do it and how we can create stunning black and white pictures in Capture One. So here I am in Capture One. Now I've got a few pictures loaded up. I've got a couple of portraits. So we're going to look at black and white processing and how we go about kind of processing these pictures. So like I said, I've got these pictures here. So I'm going to start off with this first picture here, this portrait. Now, I've kind of picked this one because this is going to be a little bit easier to process. The second portrait I've got is going to be a little bit harder and we have to do a little bit more work with it. Okay, so first things first, what we need to do is we need to convert this color image into black and white. Now, it's a great image anyway. It's quite well exposed. It's kind of got some nice shadow definition and things in there. So hopefully this should be quite nice and quite easy to convert. So first thing I need to do is just go up to my color tab, which is in the top left here. And then I need to go down to a section that says a black and white, which is all the way down the bottom here. And then I just need to click enable black and white. Now this will turn my image to black and white. Now, this looks great. It looks good. It doesn't look, I don't think it looks quite to my taste. It looks a little bit flat at the minute. So what we can do, we've got a few choices. As with everything with black and white processing, there's a number of different ways to do it. So underneath, within the black and white mode, we've got our color channels that we can basically use the sliders to adjust the image. And we're adjusting basically the amount of that color going into the image there. And we can adjust, the yellow isn't doing too much actually, and just to see what is going on and if we can make any change in there. Okay, so I think the red and the yellow pretty much doing most of the hard work in there, especially the red. So we kind of reach a limit as well. So we can't really go any kind of further than that, which looks great. I mean, this look, I think in a magazine and things, I've seen it quite a lot and it does look really good. The other thing we can do is actually play with the color balance just above this. Now we've got a master color balance, but I'm interested in the shadow, midtones and highlights section in here. Now I'm not so much interested in the color because that will add a color to our picture, as you can see, and we can add a tone in there. What I'm interested in the brightness and darkness here, so we can add that and we can just start to have a play with this as well, just to see if it makes any difference. Actually, lightening it up, I think, makes quite a difference for me. Those highlights, boosting those highlights a bit. However, again, we reach a kind of a bit of a limit. So the next thing we need to do is move over to our exposure tab here, and this is where we can really do that heavy editing. Now the easiest thing to do is to use the just the sliders, like we do in Lightroom pretty much, or any other software. We can use the contrast, boost some contrast in there. We can play with the highlights and shadows and things in here as well, and really have a look at kind of how we can affect this picture. We've also got levels and we've also got curve in here. Now we've got an RGB curve, but it kind of adjusts everything at once. So what I like to do is go into the Luma curve. Now this will adjust the luminosity of the picture, but it won't really mess around with too many other kind of points. So we can really, we can create a really kind of stylized look with this, or we can just bring those highlights back in a little bit. We could perhaps just bring up those shadows a little bit in there. Still looks a little bit flat to me. But we can also go into the channels separately, the red, green and blue channels, the RGB channels. So also what we can do is we can apply masks in Capture One. So let's have really quick, let me look at certain parts of the picture that I want to enhance with a little bit more contrast, perhaps the eyes, make them a little bit darker, say the lips and nose, and perhaps a little bit in the hands and things, just to make it pop a little bit more. Really easy way to do this is to go up to our Layers tab in Capture One, and we'll just click New Layer. And then I'm just going to go up to the top and click on my Draw Mask tool with a little paintbrush there. And very simply, I'm just going to put a bit over the eyes, a bit on the lips, a bit in here. I'm just going to make the brush a bit smaller, actually, it's quite big. And I'm just going to do a bit of the hands here as well. Just be quiet, you can be a little bit more precise and just being a bit quick in here. Make these kind of stand out a little bit. And then we can just put perhaps a little bit on there. Perhaps a little bit in the hair as well, just at the top here. Now we can use this mask to kind of make those bits darker, lighter. We can add a bit of contrast in there as well. So it makes it just stand out, but we're being very selective with what we're doing. So we can make things stand out a little bit more in what we're doing. Now we can also apply, this is where Capture One wins out over Lightroom, I think. We can apply everything to this. So we can go into our Luma curve and we can just start applying Luma adjustments to these areas to make things really stand out. Okay, we can also use this mask here in our Details tab at the top here, and we can add a little bit of sharpening just to these areas. Now I'm going to create a new layer just for my sharpening, and I'm just going to put a tiny little bit of sharpening on the eyes, on this eye here, and perhaps very slight just in here, just so we've kind of got a little bit going on. That's all the sharpening I'm going to do on this picture. And I'm just going to bring it in a little bit. Now, we can just see it happening there, just so we make that eye stand out a little bit more. And that's it. That's all I'm going to do. Now, so we've got our grain section here, and we can add in a little bit of grain. The best way I find with grain is to zoom in a little bit. So get my cursor, and we will just zoom in a little bit to the picture here. It's probably a little bit too far, to be honest. Let's come back a little bit so we can just see what's going on. Now, harsh grain is going to obviously add quite a harsh grain to it. So it more looks like, I think it looks like a Kodak T-Max, this kind of grain, quite harsh. And just add a little bit of silver rich, I think is a very nice kind of adjustment in there. Just adds that little bit of authenticity to the picture, say. And there we have our finished picture. I'm just going to create a clone variant and reset, just so we can have a quick look actually at before and after. So there we are. So we've got our color image that we started with, and then we've got our black and white version that we've made on here. Like I said, very quick edit that. We could always do little adjustments in there. I've kind of edited that to my taste. I mean, you might want to do other little bits to it, but that's very quick and kind of gives you a good idea of how we can kind of use Capture One to convert our black and white pictures. Okay, let's move on to this next picture now. Now, I'm just going to create a clone variant of this just to start with, so we can do a comparison at the end of what we started with and where we're going. Okay, now I'm going to do quite a bit to this. I have had a bit of a play with this picture to start with. So I'm just going to do quite a bit to this because I think this picture is a little bit tricky to convert. It's not as good as an exposure as this picture we started with. So it's not as good as exposure as this picture we started with, I think. But the light, I really was drawn to the light in this picture, and I thought, I wonder what we can do with it. Let's have a look and see what we can do with this picture here. So first things first, let's go to our adjustments and convert it to black and white. Now it comes out quite, I want to say wishy-washy. I don't know if that's quite the right term in here. Now we've got some adjustments going on in our black and white filter. So these adjustments I just popped in just to have a look and just see if I can make it a little bit better. I thought it needed a little bit more of the red filter in there just to brighten it up a little bit. And the cyan filter down here is just altering the shadow underneath the pot there. So I just wanted that a little bit more, a little bit darker, shall we say. So just bring it in a little bit and just get it rough. Like I said, we kind of will end up with reaching a point where we can't go any further. Okay, so let's move into the adjustments and the kind of exposure and contrast and everything as well. So first things first, let's try and make our life a little bit easier. Let's have a play with the exposure, and perhaps already, I think just by playing with these tabs, we're kind of making it a little bit better. I think I've added a little bit of contrast in there so it's not as flat. So by doing that, we are making the background not as nice. There are problems happening up here. There's two ways we can address that, which I'll talk about in a minute when we finish up and have a look. Okay. But let's have a look at our Luma curve here. Now I'm just going to do this on just the background layer. I haven't created another layer or anything at the minute. So I'm just, let's have a look at our midtones a bit, the shadows details. Shadows are coming in, that's quite nice. However, she's a little bit dark now, if I do it overall. I quite like it though, but just a little bit darker in there. So again, we've improved that. However, we've got this big problem area in the top left here. We will have a look at that in a second. Okay, so that's better. We're getting there. I wonder on the reds, if I just bring up just a little bit here, it just brightens her up a little bit in here. But again, we are losing some detail just around the top here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a mask. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to add a Luma range mask. So this is a mask that we can adjust, as you'll see in a second. So I just created a mask here. What I need to do is right click on it and click fill mask. So now everything is going to be affected. Now if I click on Luma range, then I'm going to display the mask. And then everything should come up red in a second. Okay, so here's the mask. So everything in red is going to be masked out. So the part I'm interested in to start with is this top left. Let's see if we can do something about that. So first of all, what we need to do is I need to bring my shadow slider across, because actually I don't need all this area down the bottom here. So we're going to be concentrating on just this area at the top here. And let me just look at my highlights in here. So this is just going to be affecting those blown out parts of the picture. Now, as you can see, we've picked up a bit of the model in here as well. So I'm just going to feather that a little bit. We may alter this mask. However, let's just create that and apply. So I've just created that mask. And then let's go down to my curves and let's have a play with the Luma. See, it's just... So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that mask, and I'm almost tempted just to forget about this part up here. But what I want to do is put a little bit of a mask in just along here. So basically I'm just going to draw in a mask now across here just by using my paintbrush tool again. I'm just going to draw in just over the hands here, the parts that are just blowing out a little bit up the top here, just so we can bring this area in. Now, let me just have a play. Which tool is going to work best in here? So we could add a little bit of clarity in there, which is just going to bring it in perhaps. A little bit of exposure, but then as you can see, we are just getting a bit of a line in here as well. So we're going to have to be quite subtle in what we do. So that's not too bad. Let's turn it on and off. Actually, that isn't too bad now. So if we turn the mask on and off, we can actually see the improvement. So actually, I think that is just enough. It's very subtle, but I think that is just enough. Okay. Let's deal with this top area up here. Now, it did have a play with it with the masks and trying to bring that back in, but there isn't really a lot of information up there. So, and we can see that really from our top head, it's kind of blown out. We've got this, this yellow coming in here. There isn't really a lot of information. It's just going to look a little bit messy, I think. Now in colour, it kind of works, but when we go into black and white, it becomes very distracting. So what I'm going to do, and what I decided to do, was crop this, and I'm going to crop it to a square. So basically I will eliminate that problem area and we'll get rid of it. Again, personal preference, I quite like a square. It just works quite well, I think. And this picture, it frames it very nicely. And we've got rid of that whole problem area. We've got a little bit still going on in here, but it's not too distracting. Because what we're going to do is we're going to work on the model a little bit here, just to enhance features a little bit, just so we can bring in a little bit of contrast and a little bit kind of punch to the image. So let's create another adjustment layer just by clicking on a plus here. And actually, you should always name, so I'm going to call this one model. And a bit like what I did on the other one, I'm just going to put a little bit of adjustment in here. Now, that might be enough. So let's just have a look and see if that is going to be enough for us. So again, I'm just going to use my Luma curve here just to see. So again, it's always quite nice just to turn them on and off, have a look and see what we're doing in here. So I want to see what I can do to this hair. So I've applied my mask here. Let's have a look. I'm just going to do very simply, just see if I can bring a little bit of kind of detail or something in there, shall we say. So that's helped a little bit. Let's just click on and off. So yeah, yeah, it has had quite a lot, hasn't it, in there? So that's, yeah, we've lost a lot up here as well. This definition kind of, this is blown out. I think on the original it's blown out as well. So again, it's nice to get our exposures right as well. Okay, let's have a look at some sharpening as well on here. Let's just sharpen the eyes. So I'm going to go back down to my model layer here, and then I'm just going to go into sharpening, and we'll add a little bit of sharpening to those eyes as well in there. And what I might do also, let me go back to my hair layer as well. Let's bring in a little bit of sharpening to that as well. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my overall adjustment, and then I'm going to add some grain to this picture. Now I'm going to add quite a harsh grain to it. So let me zoom in and we can have a look and see what's going on with this grain. Because what is going to happen with the grain, as you can see here, it's going to hide all those horrible little artifacts and things that are going on. And also, because it's outside, it's that type of picture where grain is going to work quite well with it, I think. And we're just a little bit too much there. I think we're losing a little bit. And possibly I might just go back to my development tab, go back to the vignette, and I might just add a little bit of a vignette to it. Possibly. We'll just see how it looks. I think that's the beauty now. But perhaps a little bit of a vignette like that. And I think from where we were to where we are, it hasn't been too bad if we do a before and after. Done an okay job, I think. Like I said, everyone's taste is slightly different as well. I think everyone's going to be different. I've gone for a square crop there. You may want to keep it as the portrait. You may think it looks better with all that detail in there. Okay, so as with everything I say, the best way to find out how your picture looks is we've edited it on the screen and it's all looks great, but the best way is to actually giving it a print. So that's what I've done. I've given them both a print. Now we'll start off with the square picture here. It looks great. I've used the Platinum Gloss Art fibre here for the paper, and it just works really well for black and whites. It reminds me of that kind of darkroom fibre-based paper, and it works beautifully. Now, this picture here looks absolutely great. I think the grain worked really well we put in, and also the sharpness of the eyes, and it just comes off the page and looks really nice. It's quite a nice kind of portrait, and I think the square looks just lovely. It just frames everything really nicely, for me anyway. Like I said, it's personal taste and things. Now, the next portrait was this one here, again on the Platinum Gloss Art Fibre. Again, looks perfect. I think I can see a little bit more detail in here than I could on the screen as well. And everything has just popped and it's just looked great. And they've just come out really, really nice. Now, to print these, I use the Canon black and white mode. So no profile or anything assigned, just use the Canon black and white mode. And just printed straight from Capture One, didn't take it into anything else. So I'm just really happy with the way they've come out, and I think they look great, and I think I'd be really happy with those. So I hope that's been useful, kind of taking you through kind of how to process images within Capture One and make really stunning black and whites. Like I said, personal taste, I've kind of edited these images to kind of my own kind of taste and what I like. So please use those tools, but use them to make your kind of versions of these and versions of black and white that you're happy with. Now, as I said at the start of the video, I did promise a voucher code which will get you 15% off Fotospeed papers, which is FSYouTube15. And also, please don't forget to submit some pictures to our FS Monthly competition, but just by using the hashtag FS Monthly on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Now, I can't wait to see some of your amazing black and white pictures, be it if they're processed in Capture One or Lightroom or Photoshop or anything else you may be using. And the problem I always think with black and white processing is there's 100 ways to do it, and I think the best thing to do is find the way that works best for you. So, hope that's been useful, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.